Hi everybody, welcome back. When I set this YouTube channel up, it was pretty much done to give me an opportunity to talk about the game that I love, how much the game has influenced me over the years, growing up as a little boy and now as an adult. So it's going to be, I want it to be in depth. I want it to talk about tactics and formations and players and managers and philosophies. And over the next few weeks, I'm going to be talking about the pros and cons of youth football at grassroots and academy, and what pressures there are on coaches, on players, and where that comes from. Does that come from parents? And also the pressures that parents have when they're in an academy to get their boy or girl to venues and training sessions and different sessions throughout the week when you've got a full-time job or you're a single parent or whatever. So keep an eye out for that. But today's video, what I wanted to do, I'm really excited about this, is to talk about role models and heroes, because these influences have such a strong, powerful way of making us, how we act, how we feel, and particularly in sport, I think it can give you something to really channel in on. And it's very important, I believe, that adults have heroes and are open to admit that they've got heroes. It's one of them things, I think, that if you're in the pub and you're talking about someone, it's hard to say, actually, I admire this person because of what they do, what they've done, where they've been, how they act or whatever. So I wanted to just sort of touch on it today, just leading into my thoughts on the state of youth football and where we can go and how we can encourage, and of course the big debate of winning and losing, which I'm going to touch on over the next few weeks. So heroes, if I asked you now who's your hero, put it in the comments below. I want to know who your hero was as a boy, a girl, or even now. When I was growing up, when I look back now, there's been many influences, whether it be a school teacher, whether it be a coach, whether it be someone famous, whether it be that person in the year above you that you've always wanted to be. And I think it's very important that we have those people to look up to. I think that obviously there can be bad influences and there can be bad role models, but the positive ones, I believe, play a firm part in who we are growing up. So I always remember my first one. Now, everyone assumes that my first role model, my first hero was Matt Le Tissier. In truth, it was probably someone like Batman or Superman, do you know what I mean, from watching that. And you'll probably think, well, why are you mentioning this? This is a coaching YouTube channel. But these influences, as you grow up, are vital. So you learn to have role models, whether it be a superhero or things like that. But then what I found is that my first one, I remember Colin Clark. He was a striker for Saints. 1985, I went and watched Saints. He just scored goals, and I remember him just being strong and quick and scoring goals. And I used to go back into the back garden and pretend to be Colin Clark. Then Matt Le Tissier came along, and obviously those that know me will know how much of an influence he had on me trying to be him in the playground. Not very well, by the way, but I did try. But those influences there. So my love for football has come through these role models. So my love for the game and the fact that I can work in the game now and coach has probably stemmed from, if there wasn't a Colin Clark or a Matt Le Tissier when I was a little boy, then why would I enjoy football so much? Would I still go? Would I still want to go and pretend, go and watch these players and then come home and pretend to be them? So I just find now that kids nowadays, there's too much, obviously, the thing of going on, ironically, YouTube, too much, playing games, playing Fortnite, all these games like that. Whereas actual real life role models, I think, are so important. So I remember growing up playing football, and coaches come along, and there was always coaches that would put an influence on you. So my dad was my coach, so obviously, it's very tough being a dad and manager, because I never wanted to listen to him, really, if I'm honest with you, because he's my dad. Everyone else seemed to, but I didn't realise until I've got older now that the players that he had playing for him and with me, my mates, think the world of my dad, because he was there every week. He was that arm around the shoulder, or he gave his time, or he gave his words to them. So that's important to realise that I didn't even see that. But role models for me are so important, and I want to talk about coaching role models for me. So the reason why I started coaching, even though I believe that I, when I played the game, I was always watching the game in different ways. And I'll be honest with you, I saw situations on the pitch that I knew were right, but I didn't have the ability to do. So I actually believe I was born to be a coach rather than a footballer. Because of just quite simply, physically, or even technically, if I'm honest with you, I didn't have the skill set to go and do what I could see happening. So now when I coach, it's different. I see things and I try and help these players to see those things that I've saw and go out and implement them. And communication obviously is key to that, and confidence to speak to people and put your arm around them at the right time and things like that. But one of the things that I want to talk about is my coaching influences. So I started coaching, like I said, I've had this sense, if you like, to be a coach. But I was playing football and I got the opportunity to coach, and it was when Jose Mourinho had just gone to Chelsea. And he had made a big influence on the Premier League. So I know that he came, I came into coaching in 2005. So Mourinho was really into his stride, and he was the box office hit, if you like. And I remember this charisma and this aura and the way he spoke and his arrogance and the way he acted on the touchline. And I'm not afraid to admit that I probably mimicked some of that back then. So when I was stood there, decisions that I would make, I'd probably be thinking, rather than make my own, it was like, if someone confrontation on the sideline, rather than walk away, what would Mourinho do? Would he get involved? So sometimes I had confrontations with coaches and things like that. But over the years, what I've done is that I've learned to be my own person. But that first major role model, influence, however way you want to pull it, of coaching, was Jose Mourinho. Like I said, that strut, the special one and things like that. And it saddens me a little bit now, because I see him now. I still believe he's a top coach. I still believe that he's a top manager. But I personally don't believe that he's adapted his management style for the game of today. I think that, in the days of Sir Alex Ferguson, Sir Bobby Robson, Brian Clough, people like that, where that tough hand above players always worked. And I don't think now Mourinho has got that. I think that there's other managers that have come along that have got that, but also know when, a little bit more perhaps, to adapt their man management skills for the player today. Tactically as well, the game's changed lots as well. Mourinho's always been about big, physical, strong players. And the game and the rules have dictated that Mourinho now, for me, will have to change the way he thinks and plays, because these young players, that are coming through, and the quick ones and the small midfielders, and it's all about interceptions now rather than tackling, and it's getting more and more away from the contact. So Mourinho will have to adapt, but his influence on me was huge. And it does sadden me when some people say to me as well, they say, well, why are you such a big fan of Pep? Why are you such a big fan of Pochettino? Why are you a big fan of other managers like Diego Simeone and stuff like that? And I think it is that charisma, and that, because that's how I coach. Anyone that sees me coach will see that I've got passion, I've got enthusiasm, I've got charisma, and try and get that into my players and really make them believe that I'm here to help them. And I don't think I get that from Mourinho anymore. So it's interesting how, even though you have role models at certain times, how they can influence you yet change. So when Guardiola came along, and all of a sudden, this tall, dark, handsome, man with lots of charisma, was prepared to take on Mourinho in those battles of, obviously, El Clasico, when Pep was at Barcelona and Jose Mourinho was at Real Madrid. So even though it was an equal battle, I admired them both. But I think what I'm moving on to now is why is this called Pep's Disciple? Why have I written blogs and proud to say that I'm in Guillaume Balaguer's Brave New World from speaking about Pochettino? And that's because I've now got role models and people I look up to, and heroes, if you like, as an adult. And they've inspired me. And what I want to do is, people that watch this as coaches, is we always say about young people looking up to older people and looking at this player or that, or whoever it is, whether it be coaching, whether it be a school teacher or something. But I don't think there's anything wrong with adults having role models, mimicking them, copying their ideas, showing that, if they do something and it's enthusiastic and passionate, and you think that that's the way of getting the best message to your players, then I think that's something important. Pep Guardiola has been a massive influence on me. I've met him once. a brief conversation when Matt Letitia introduced me to him. The words that he said to me were unbelievable. His first words to me, Jody, Matt tells me you're a wonderful, lovely coach. One day, maybe I can learn from you. And when I was listening to Pep speak, as he was walking on that golf course, and we were talking about, his style, he kept bringing it back to other people. So he told us about the amazing job Roy Hodgson had done at Crystal Palace, and taking on a team that had lost, I think, the first 7 games and yet still stayed up, finished mid-table. He talked about Pochettino's Spurs and how they play, and how he would love, if he was a young player now, to play for Pochettino. And it made me think to myself that here is a man, arguably, at this moment in time, probably the best manager or coach in the world, and he don't want to talk about himself. He wants to talk about other people and what their success is. And that's made me think. In the past, it was always about myself and whether I could make myself better. But I now realise that it's a duty of care in the coaching world to try and make yourself better, your players better, other coaches around you better, and be open-minded. And that came from a role model, an influence at the age. Well, at the time I was 37 years old. So it's just where I want to. What I want to say is, don't be afraid at any age to look up to people, to take people the ideas from people. See something that you see on the telly. Especially if it's positive. If it's negative, you need to learn from it. There's been many role models that have came along, and the way they speak to people has influenced me. So even now, for example, I know it sounds daft, but when I walk into a shop, and you're talking to someone and they're serving you, ask how their day is, ask how they are, find out bits about them and stuff. And you might think to yourself, well, what has this got to do anything with coaching? But I think if you can have that integrity, if you can have those skills, if you can have that genuine desire to want to communicate and be positive with people, then it will come out in your coaching. So that's what I wanted to say today. This video is going to go out, and it starts up a real topic coming up over the next few weeks of grassroots football. I'm going to be speaking to some guests. Are you ready for the push to become a professional footballer? That's you as a player, you as a coach, you as a parent, whatever. Do you realise what you have to put in, whether you're one of those genres of people? Because it is a cutthroat world. Ultimately, professional football clubs, their job is to produce good people, good people for the community. But ultimately, their job is to produce footballers talented enough with their feet, strong enough with their minds to go and play in front of thousands of people on a regular basis. Okay? And the skills that you're learning as a boy or a girl to get there, okay, are being developed on a daily basis, and there are some tough things that are going to happen to you. Yeah, so the fear of being released, the fear of, or the bravery, I should say, of stepping onto a football pitch and actually saying, do you know what, I'm playing under pressure today. I know that if I keep giving the ball away, then people are going to be looking, and after 6 weeks, 12 weeks, am I going to be under pressure to actually stay at this football club? Are you still brave enough to take that challenge on and still try and do the right things rather than just play 5-yard sideward pass? Are you still brave enough to dribble the ball? There's a certain player that plays for Barcelona nowadays. He wears number 10. And I think that every time he got the ball and he lost it when he was a little boy, had he just thought, do you know what, I think the best option is just to play safe here, I don't think he would be the greatest player of all time. And I don't think he would be playing for the club and won the honours that he's done. So how do we create that environment? How do we see the long-term project? How do we see the long-term prospects? I'm going to be delving into that. But thank you again for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please share. Let's get the message out there. I've got some fascinating things coming up. But I'm going to be talking over the next few weeks about winning and losing. Is it important as a child? My beliefs, and I want your thoughts as well. But most importantly, today's message is, don't be afraid, no matter how old you are, to look at someone and think, do you know what? I can actually learn from them, and I can actually be influenced from them to make my life and the people around me a little bit better. Thanks for watching again. Catch you all soon. I'm enjoying this. I'm getting some fantastic feedback. It's brilliant. It's good fun. I'm making mistakes along the way. The editing's getting a little bit better. But anything you want me to talk about, let me know. I've got some, like I said, I've got some things planned. But anything you want me to talk about, let me know and I'll get onto it. Thanks ever so much, guys. Cheers.